Praise be Jesus Christ.
Glory to him forever.
My name is Father Lorenzo Peñalosa, and I am a doctoral candidate in liturgical studies here at the Catholic University of America, and I serve as the president of the School of Theology and Religious Studies Students Association, or better known as STRESA.
And my name is Mariana Barrias, and I'm earning my MA in Historical and Systematic Theology at Catholic University, and I'm also Social Committee co-chair at Stressa.
And this is
Studeamus.
Studiamus. Well, welcome everybody to Studiamus. We chose the title Studiamus, which comes from the verb studio, studere in Latin, which means to be eager, to be zealous. And this is where we actually get the English word study, which involves being eager to learn. So Mariana and I chose the name Studiamus because it's an invitation and encouragement for our fellow grad students to stay excited and committed to learning. In this podcast, Mariana and I will be interviewing fellow scholars, especially but not limited to theology professors. Now, in future episodes, the spotlight will be on our guests, but today, Mariana and I will share a little about ourselves and about what we bring to the table. But before we begin there, Mariana, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself and why you're joining me in this podcast?
Well, I joined because you asked me.
Yes.
And I was really thrilled that you asked me. So before I went to graduate school, I worked as a reporter and my favorite job in Catholic media. And my favorite part of the job was interviewing people. And my favorite part of graduate school is deepening my knowledge of the faith. So I'm excited to share this opportunity to combine the two. So interview people and deepen my knowledge of the faith.
Yeah, definitely really interesting. I look forward to talking to our fellow scholars about different topics and learning more about their experience. Um, Speaking of which, actually, can you tell us a little bit about your academic background and how you got here to CUA?
So I was born Roman Catholic, but I was introduced to the Byzantine Rite as a teenager,
Mm,
and I am now canonically Melkite. Um, and I'm both and I'm really drawn to the theology of icon from a perspective of as an icon painter, not professionally by no means, but I do, I paint icons as gifts to my friends and family.
wow.
So basically, I'm really kind of interested in everything, but what I'm hoping with the podcast is to add an Eastern Christian perspective to our conversations.
Wow, definitely. I think that's a really important aspect that often gets overlooked. I think a lot of times when we hear the term Catholic, people associate that with Roman Catholic, which is more the Western part of Christianity. But I think the East has a lot to teach us. So I'm glad
Mhm.
you're offering us this perspective.
Sure, it's the diversity of churches within the church is why we can call the church universal.
Exactly.
So, and Father Lorenzo, um, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what led you here?
Thank you. Yeah, so I was born in the Philippines, actually, and then moved here to the US in 2006. I'm a Benedictine monk and priest of St. Meinrad Archabbey in Indiana. So I think one small contribution I have here is my monastic background coming from religious life. Um, from 2018 until 2021, I studied at the Pontifical Athenaeum Sant Anselmo in Rome, working on my licentiate in sacred liturgy there. And now I'm working on my doctorate here at Catholic University of America.
Yes, and that's how this podcast emerged was our conversations as theology graduate students.
Yeah, so Mariana and I noticed that, a lot of times there's kind of this unintentional gulf between professors and grad students, or sometimes even just amongst us grad students. And so we want to contribute to bringing some unity and harmony to build greater rapport between us scholars here, especially in our school here at CUA.
Sure. And as for me, I know as a busy student, I frequently want to supplement my reading materials by listening to podcasts on theological topics that, especially ones I'm not familiar with, so that I can get like a, 10,000-foot view. So,
Mm.
and as I've grown in my studies, I've realized that there's a lot that there is a lot that I would like to listen to. And I imagine there are a lot of theology students that feel the same. That's part of one of the reasons why I was excited about this project.
Absolutely. And I think we have a great, great set of faculty here at Catholic U. And I think we don't really know a lot of them except for when we take, classes or seminars with them. And I think, having this opportunity to interview them more about their interests and the projects they're working on. Okay, so Mariana, you mentioned your interest about iconography. Can you share a little bit more about that, as well as other research interests that you may have?
Sure. So right now I'm working on research on the theology of light and iconography. So this started as I was really interested in understanding from both a practical and a theological level what it means to be an iconographer.
Mm,
And I started, I was obviously reading a lot of different painters' manuals and spiritual guides and, mentorship of various teachers. But also, as I'm in graduate studies, so I'm
mm,
reading more and more about Eastern Christian spirituality. So I was really interested in kind of combining the two. And basically, so in this research I'm working on right now, I start off by talking about iconography as a discipline, as
mm,
emerging essentially from the incarnation. And the reason I say that is because um, Christ, by becoming
hmm
incarnate, he's the image of God revealing himself through our material world. And because of that gift of himself, he made it possible for people to see and to see God in a way
hmm
that is just beyond our wildest imagination.
hmm
So as you know, a there's in Eastern Christian um, mystical theology, there's a very strong emphasis on light, and um, and and that's rooted in various um, in the Christian tradition. One figure I focus on in particular is Pseudo Dionysius,
mm,
and among others, who really developed the theology of light. In iconography, what you see is a real emphasis on light in the
mm,
icons that were being produced at the time to really emphasize that there's lots of gold leaf. There's
mm,
um, they lots of gold leaf. There are little brush strokes that you put on an icon's face or on an icon of a person. You put on their face to emphasize the light that radiates from them. The action of the iconographer is one in which as they're growing closer to God, they're also making present through their iconography that interior illumination.
Yeah, definitely interior illumination. I
So,
think I can, also think of in the Old Testament, Moses, his one-on-one discourse with the Lord on Mount Sinai. Every time he would
mhm.
speak with God, his face would turn radiant as well. So there's that element of light that's there.
I do quite a bit of reflection on Moses as a predecessor
Mm,
to um, to the Transfiguration. So, I mean, obviously, both Elias and Moses, by their presence, is
mm,
significant at the Transfiguration. But Gregory of Nyssa, in particular, really hones in on Moses as a model of the spiritual life. Basically, what I'm showing is that the iconographer has a particular role to play in modeling the uh, the spiritual life, both through their action, but also through what the icon means to the people who venerate it.
mhm. Absolutely. And I think just going back to your point about senses, how this can be a very sensory experience. One of the richness of our faith, rich aspects of our faith is our sacramentality, how we use physical objects, right, to depict things that are beyond what we can imagine. And another thing that we share, as well as an appreciation for, just art and architecture are both very visual people, right? And for me, I am very fascinated with church architecture. Um, so actually, having a chance to live in Rome for 3 years was a great gift because you get to see um, lots of different churches with various architectural styles that
Mhm.
reflect different time periods. Romanesque, Gothic, not so much in Rome, interestingly enough, Baroque, and then early Christian architecture and things like that. In fact, my licentiate thesis, actually, when I was in Rome, involved one aspect of the arrangement in the church building, and that's the relationship between the altar and the tabernacle, where the Eucharist is reserved for veneration. So from my licentiate, I worked on St. Charles Borromeo's instruction on the building and furnishing of churches from 1577, what it said about the physical features and placement of the tabernacle, comparing that with the current church art and architecture guidelines here in the U.S., especially in this document from the year 2000, built of living stones. Um, so on the one hand, I'm interested in church art and architecture, more of architecture probably. On the other hand, I'm also interested in words, the words that we use in worship. Um, my current project, if you will, full-time project now is my dissertation, my doctoral dissertation for my STD. Which is titled Eucharistiae Gaudium et Laetitia, a liturgical theology of joy in post-communion prayers of the 2008 Missale Romanum. So basically, in my dissertation, I'm looking at the prayers that we use at Mass as a source of theology. In particular, the prayer after communion. So usually, right after communion, sometimes there's still time for reflection. There's a hymn and things like that, and then some time for silence. And then the priest, before dismissing the people, says in the Roman Mass, Roman
Mhm.
Rite Mass says, "Let us pray," and then he says this prayer that is usually very, very short. You blink and you miss it. And then afterwards, in most parishes, at least, there's parish announcements. And so sometimes that prayer that was just said can get lost or drowned out, and then there's the dismissal. And
Mhm.
basically approaching the Roman Missal as a source of theology. But basically, how do we talk to God? What are we saying about Him? And what are we asking for? And in this case, I'm actually using a very verbal or linguistic method, um, looking at these prayers after communion with words Gaudium and Laetitia. So, two, among others, words of joy in Latin.
Mhm.
So, what I bring to the table are hopefully a mixture between an appreciation for unwritten sources, so architecture, art, um, and written sources, especially the prayers that we use in our worship.
And this is we are not a sacred art podcast,
No.
despite our waxing poetically about sacred art, as we should, because it is wonderful. But I do think that we have a wide range of people that we've already interviewed, which is part of why I'm so excited to be here and to share what you know, what we're doing with other people.
Yeah, definitely. So in particular, Mariana and I are actually looking at three aspects in our interviews with fellow scholars. The first one is just to hear their own academic journey so far. What led them to academia, and in particular, what led them here at Catholic University of America? And then second one is their current research interests and projects that they're working on. And the
Mhm.
third one is just if they have any advice for us grad students about studying, especially about writing dissertations or
Mhm.
researching and things like that. Are there any topics in particular, Mariana, that you're interested in hearing from our guests, future interviews?
Sure. Well, I think I'm really interested in getting to know our the people we interview, the experts that we interview as people.
Mm,
So people and scholars. And I think that, my experience can sometimes be that when we're in class, they talk about the class content
mm,
and um, and through the conversations outside of class, I get to know a little bit more about them and the the current work they're working on, and also just kind of fun facts about them as people, what they did before they became a theologian, why they were drawn to the field, interesting hobbies they might have. I know, for example, Jem Sullivan,
mm,
she's one of your professors.
hmm.
You've been and she's in your program. And I knew her through all of the many times she's talked about art. And so it was a surprise for me that I was when I first came here, I realized that she leads the catechesis program. And
Mm.
then you being in the catechesis program said, "Oh, she's an art expert? I had no idea."
Yeah, absolutely. I
So
wasn't. Yeah, I took her course and she didn't really mention it at all, and so it was a very pleasant surprise. So you're right. Yeah.
yeah, and we've definitely talked to her, and we've already interviewed a few people, and she's among the scholars that we've interviewed. And in addition, also just because our goal is to have a wide range of scholars in training listen to the podcast. I, my hope is that we can show to or if they're listening, so that our viewer our listeners can hear
Hmm.
the the value of the value and the relevance of their research to today. So, I mean, I think what our the excellent faculty are their research and their teaching is inherently valuable. I do think that showing its impact to the
Hmm.
world is also really powerful. And I think that gives an opportunity for people to get a better sense of the trajectory that they can have by pursuing this calling in a particular academic field,
Hmm.
and ways that they can make a contribution and have an impact on people's lives today and beyond.
Absolutely. For me, I'm also just looking forward to sort of stepping back and looking at the bigger picture as well. It seems like um, we're at a time of transition now, I think, with technology and especially with AI. And in some ways, like studying, researching is a very different experience now compared to, say, 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And so I'm excited to interview our guests about, like, how do we live out this calling, as you said, in this time of feels like this time of transition when things just
Mhm.
change. The pace of change today just seems to be very, very quick. And also to hear about the opportunities, the exciting opportunities, because sometimes it can be overwhelming, I would imagine. With all the changes that are happening in the world, to say, hey, we're still studying. The church has been doing theology for 2,000 years, so we're grounded by our faith, and
Mhm.
by our love of learning, and yet we look to the future with hope, and to hear more about how they experience this.
I think it's an opportunity for us as scholars in training and the scholars that we interview to uh, present what it really means to be a researcher and how it is distinct from what the AI can produce. And the AI can, as far as we can see it, so ultimately the AI is reliant on what people do. It
Hmm.
has to draw on the data that it is given. And I know, as being in historical theology, there is a lot that's not online. I can
True.
assure
Yeah.
you there is a lot
No,
that's
that's
not
true.
digitized.
Hmm.
Much of it is in languages that people don't no longer read unless they're a scholar. And even then, it might be because of the way it's written or printed. It might be very difficult for, well, it is very difficult for a machine to determine what's written. And there just is so much about who we are as Christians that I think is still being discovered.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Mariana. And I'm sure we both hope that this podcast can really help fellow scholars and scholars in training to really be eager to learn and to be lifelong learners, especially in the field of theology and religious studies. That's all. This is all the time we have for today. We hope you can join us for our future episodes, and we look forward to our to interviewing again our fellow scholars soon. So this has been
Studiamus.
Studiamus. Okay,
We forgot to do a prayer.
do we have prayer?
We didn't do a prayer at the beginning.
I think we did. Praise be Jesus Christ now and forever,
That
right?
counts? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. You're
I
right. That's good enough.
did we
Okay.
do a prayer in other? I can't remember. I don't recall.
Yeah, we that was
Okay.
that's fine.